Hello, everyone, and welcome to this very special cards event, the Mess Hall Brawl Bootcamp. My name is Ólafur Hrafn Steinarsson, also known as Ole Krummi, and I am joined here by Admirable and Spoos, the wonderful duo. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm really looking forward to this event. Always love playing some cards, just hanging out and just chilling out with my good friends and talking about some cards. Mark and I actually hung out yesterday and played some cards a little bit yesterday too. Mark's our producer for this event. Spoos, how are you doing today?
Perfect. Had a nice Indian food for dinner and looking forward to the event today here. And really hype what the players are bringing, and I hope we see some insane matches here.
It looks like you are located on one of the battlefields in cards, Spoos. Is this your wallpaper, or is this some editing magic going on there?
No, this is my working place where I research in rocket science and hopefully flying to the moon soon.
Well, I mean, we have a kick-ass lineup here today, and that's what I'm probably most excited about. You know, some of these people that are here playing cards today are people that I've watched for years. So let's jump on over. Let's see the teams real quick and go through them here together. We start there off on the top. It is Bubbles, and he's going to be coaching Amaz. Admirable, tell us a little bit about Amaz.
Amaz is a player that's been kind of involved in just gaming in general for quite a long time. I actually, met him back in I think 2013 it was, and he had just come off of the name The Amazing Jason, where he just wanted to kind of be into game design stuff, and he worked on that kind of thing for years. And he got into Hearthstone, and he started performing very strongly in tournaments, and then just kind of became very well known after that. Was a very entertaining streamer for a long time, and just been into kind of card games in general since then. You know, he's been just moving on and kind of going into streaming, and now he's found himself landing on cards, the KARDS CCG. And you know, this is kind of like almost the exact same fashion that I ended up getting this card game as well. So I just like playing card games and kind of just went around the horn and landed on cards and went, yeah, this game's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I mean, he's joined by Bubbles. Spoos, tell us a little bit about Bubbles.
Yeah, Bubbles, well known in the cards community, a very helpful guy who's always helping newer players develop their game and help them out with any questions, and also a very good player, some OCC appearances, and yeah, I really like this guy, and we're close friends, I would say.
All right, and then the next team up, it's going to be Darkness and TheaBeasty. I'll tell you a little bit about Darkness. Darkness is, one of the longest-standing players in the game. He has been one of the best players. He has been at the top of the tournament scene for a while. He made it all the way into the quarterfinals of last year's World Championship, and he is being joined by TheaBeasty that comes to us from the Gwent scene. Isn't that right, Admirable?
Yeah, Gwent is kind of like one of those card games that is, it's been through quite a round trip in terms of how its game design has gone. It's actually gone through a complete engine redesign as well. But where it's landed right now is pretty cool. And, kind of the way that that Gwent is going to be working with, the way that lines are going to work, you have a front line, you have a back line sort of thing. That was a similar strategy concept idea that I had to try to cross over into cards as I came over to this one to start playing. The idea of the front line and the back line, and that is one of these lines is a shared line by the two of you. Kind of understanding where your resources are going to go in between those two lines was it wasn't a very overlapping strategy, but it did at least have that concept introduced to it. So there's at least one natural element coming over from Gwent to cards here as well.
All right, and the next team up, Scout and TrumpSC. I want to say one thing about Trump. I mean, I started watching Trump probably like 10 years ago or something when he was streaming Hearthstone a lot. I learned from him how to basically go infinite in Hearthstone draft. So I'm a little bit amazed that I'm here casting him playing cards today. And his partner is Scout. And, he's been around for a long time, just like you, Spoo. So tell us a little bit about Scout.
Yeah, Scout, I think he's probably the most entertaining streamer in cards, and almost the most creative in deck building. Building his decks, he's more like not a serious player, but more like a meme player. So every meme deck that you can imagine, Scout already invented it and played it and made it popular and also successful. And I think he is one of the card streamers that I watch the most, because it's very entertaining and nice to watch.
Yeah. All right, and then we move over to the final team there, and that is Flake and AliasV. Now, Flake, he just joined our scene kind of with you, Admirable, around the same time. So out of the coaches, he's probably the least veteran-y in terms of cards, but he's partnered there with Alias. You know them both pretty well. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that team?
I met Flake in, I believe it was 2017 at the Hearthstone Philadelphia tour stop, and we kind of just hung out and played cards for quite a while, and since then we've just been kind of hanging out on Discord and playing cards a lot. With AliasV, I have not met her in person yet. However, I first got introduced to her via the Magic broadcasting side, where she's on the team that kind of does like all the pro events that they have going on, all their pretty major stuff that's been happening there. And I've been kind of just tuning into her streams occasionally, just to like when new sets of Magic come out, or when they're streaming some games that I'm similar with, those sorts of things. And just a very entertaining person in general, very articulate with their discussion, and just very well pronounced. You know, it's always entertaining to me to hear people that are very well pronounced. I don't know what it is. It's just kind of mesmerizing to me when I hear someone's voice who's just, you know, very on point with all of their letters and pop their P's when they're sitting on a microphone that doesn't have a shield in it. So, you know, shield in front of the mic, that helps a lot with the Alias side of things. But that's a very well-spoken duo that's right there, and they're going to be having plenty of jokes, plenty of cultural references. If you were born anywhere near, 85 to 91, you'll pretty much understand every single weird reference they make.
Yeah. All right, well, that's going to be the teams for us. Now let's swap back to our beautiful faces. What are we going to be watching here today? Well, these teams are going to be fighting in a double round robin. Each game is a best out of 3. And then whoever ends up with the most points at the end of the tournament will claim the title of Mess Hall Brawl Bootcamp champion. And I want to say bragging rights as the best multi-card gamer out there. So, you know, a lot to be won here in terms of your ego. And I'm really excited to see what these players bring. Out of these teams, what team are you guys most excited for, starting with you, Admirable?
When I heard Spoos kind of give the description here of the scout duo, I'm really looking forward to kind of seeing some of these meme decks, because meme decks oftentimes kind of go, well, wait a second, this is actually kind of real. And if it gets refined a little bit, it can become a very dangerous strategy. So that's kind of like where my head has been pulled. You know, that meme where the guy's like turning around and he's looking at stuff, and it's like real decks like are off in the background glaring at the guy with disgust, and he's looking at the meme decks that are passing by. That's kind of where my head is at, is I'm that weird dude in the middle. But I'm always going to be rooting for Flake in this instance, and with AliasV there, I'm kind of hoping that they can pull some things together, because I am seeing their camera views, and my gosh, do they have some entertaining looks that are in place.
Yeah, I mean, so I did ask the coaches a little bit what we might expect from their champions here today. So I have a little bit of an inside scoop, but I'm not going to spoil anything. We're going to have to go into the games and see. So we are just giving the players the green light to start playing. And what we are doing here is we are the Red Zone broadcast. So we're going to be jumping into the games. We're going to be watching them with both hands available. And then if you guys want, you can always jump on over into any of the POV streams. All of our participants are streaming on their personal channels, and they are also streaming their comms with their coaches. So if you want to learn from the best, then you might want to tune into one of those channels. And as we jump into the first game here, guys, TheaBeasty versus Amaz, and it looks like we have an Alpine deck against a bolster deck here.
Ooze, what do you got for me? I see your interest leaning into this one, and you're paying pretty close attention to this one. I want to see your point of view.
So, I mean, I'm looking at this, and already Thea's a little bit on the back foot. You know, she only has 3 credits, is able to establish there the 21st. That will draw her a card if she controls the front line, which she does not do, and not a whole host of Alpine units sitting in her hands, so not a ton of options to flood the board either. And then, of course, one of your favorite cards there in the back line, Admirable.
Oh, yeah. Red Devils, I think, is just a fantastic card. A 1 credit 1/3. It has a 1 credit operation cost, and it says if your opponent wants to target or attack this unit, it costs an additional credit to do so. So a very disruptive unit if your goal is to control that front line, which, you know, very clearly is the state here for Amaz right now with a pretty significant lead. However, this is an Alpine strategy that Thea is playing here. And so when you kind of take a look at all the Alpine stuff, occasionally it has some ways to just really claw its way back because of so much stuff that can happen. You know, I'm looking at a Leopold in hand. I'm looking at the 6th Alpine Regiment in hand. This is a 3/5 with guard. Spoos, where are you seeing this spot at right now? Who do you think has the advantage here long term?
So yeah, long term, and the problem with beat that tier is at the moment that she is not able to establish a board by now, and Amaz is having 2 units in the front line, 1 waiting in the back line to go to the front line too. But luckily, tier found a guard here now that might save her some HQ health. And the problem with deploying is she's not knowing that Amaz deck usually has a lot of cards that can retreat units. So send it back to your hand, and then suddenly the guard is gone, and he can continue to attack your HQ, lower your health. But she decided to play it here, and as we see Amaz's hand, he's not having an answer for it. So maybe she can come back from this position.
Yeah, and there's one thing that I forgot to mention for those that are interested. We're going to be running giveaways here on the channel throughout today's broadcast. All our participants are also running giveaways on their channels. Each win will net you an officer pack and a draft ticket. And to enter, please type into chat mess hall scraps in a single word, because you're all fighting for the scraps here. You know,
I love those officer packs.
They're having a food fight. Some of it falls to the ground, and turns out it's some officer packs.
Officer packs are my favorite because I'm always like, I'm just waiting for that elite to crop up, and I'm like, oh, come on, give me what new weird deck can I build?
Yeah, I mean, if people are interested, there are quite a few offers actually going on right now. Talking around this event, we do have the special weekend event, Mess Hall Brawl Bootcamp weekend event that features double XP and in-game offers on kind of skeletons for decks. A lot of the cards you're seeing here from Amaz, for instance, can now be picked up for $3.95 in the store to make your core of a Bolster the Ranks deck like Amaz is playing right now. So check those out. Highly recommend.
I've always kind of liked stuff like that too, where it's like, you know, you need a couple core cards for a deck, but you're kind of just getting into a game, and you don't have like this base collection of things to go. For just a couple bucks, you could find yourself with some really core cards that belong into a lot of decks. So something I'm always looking forward to is when that kind of concept gets introduced. Right here, we're seeing the Bolster come into effect right now, and how big of a play it is when it's on a tank specifically in Spoos. I know when I see a Sherman in the back line, Bolster is always one of the cards I'm worried about.
Yeah, Bolster is such a strong card in some situations. Not only making your opponent's unit giving it 0 operation cost, but only adding the operation costs that have been reduced to attack and health. What we saw here, that Sherman is suddenly no longer a 4/4, it's a 6/6, dealing with that guard. And suddenly 2 units again in the front line. I think Tier has to remove that Sherman there. And another thing I want to mention, look at the ranks. Tier just climbed to Field Marshal by now. And I think she's having at least the experience advantage here. Knowing how to play their deck, know the matchups. That can, in the end, be the difference between winning or losing, I guess.
Yeah, it's an excellent point to make. Just at times, just knowing what to do or who has the advantage, or just kind of knowing where your key moment in the deck is. Like when you have a Leopold in hand, you definitely have an idea of where your key moment is. Kind of sitting at that 10 credit turn that's coming into play, where suddenly you get a 6/4 artillery and your opponent has nothing in play anymore. But experience definitely can be a big deal here. Amaz is a very experienced card player, and I think has a strong fundamental understanding of concepts like tempo and value and delivering damage to your opponent's total health. At the end of the game, that sort of stuff adds up. But in terms of knowing the matchup, there's nothing like it, like actually playing the matchups a lot.
Yeah, and I think credit where credit is due. Thea, she grinded all the way to Field Marshal, right? She put in the work to win this event, and she's playing really well. I'm a little bit concerned about her hand size at the moment, but that Jagged Bomber in there means that she's able to throw back into hand whatever threat Amaz is able to pour out right now, and he is opting to develop the board really wide instead of kind of focusing in on those higher cost First Marines. So going to be interesting to see the following turns here. Ooh, really nice getting the Geburtsjager. That unit cannot be targeted by orders, so getting a big one of those can be extremely valuable.
Ali, I have to say I have always appreciated your pronunciation of these slightly European accented cards, because I always want to know what they are, but when I try to go look them up online, there's always like 16 different pronunciations I find, and I'm like, I have no idea which one of these is accurate or why. So I'm just going to wait for my good friend Ali to inform me by pronouncing it correctly and very sophisticatedly. Spoos, what are you thinking here at this spot?
Yeah, or you just ask the German guy in the cast too how it's pronounced.
Exactly. That's exactly where I was going to go next. I didn't want to just be like, oh, well, Spoos is German though, so he'll just know all the German things. Like, as an American, I have no idea how most of these American things are pronounced. I just kind of read them and hope I'm right.
I mean, Ollie was close to correct there. So listen carefully. It's Gebirgsjäger. It's not like
Gebirgsjäger?
The J is not like soft. It's more like hard, like Jäger. Yeah.
Yeah. So for American J is very different than German
Yeah.
J. I'll at least give it that. But thank you for that. That's like super clean on that one. Is the emphasis specifically on the way that you pronounce it too? Gebirgsjäger?
Gebirgsjäger. Yes.
Gebirgsjäger.
Gebirgsjäger.
I'm trying.
Gebirgsjäger.
It's so hard to emulate the German
I
accent.
know. I mean, like, I don't know. I don't know if you know this, but I mean, I did like a full training session with Darkness where he taught me how to pronounce a bunch of German words because I was struggling. Right. He was always calling me out about not pronouncing them correctly whenever I was doing the cast. So we did a little session. It was really fun.
Listen up, Ollie, you idiot. Here's how it's pronounced.
Pretty much.
It's clawed back into this game very nicely, by the way. I mean, we're looking at 8 credits, 18 health on the headquarters, and a pretty solid backline here to fight against what Amaz is putting to play.
But look at Amaz backline. There's a Panther G waiting.
True story.
Cannot be targeted by orders. And if you bolster this, it will suddenly be a 9-8. If this goes to the front line, I think only Leopold can save Terry here. But I'm not sure if we might see it because she might be dead by turn 10. I'm not sure how he removes that Panther there.
We have to see some clawback here. I think it's less about removing the Panther and more about like just kind of clogging this front line. It's kind of the way that I'm seeing it. Ooh, but when you choose to shoot the Panther instead of shoot one of these frontline units, going for the clear. Okay,
that was important. Yeah.
I really like that. I mean, with this clear, Thea basically reduces the potential damage down to 1. That is being threatened on board. She still retains some units, and she's very much setting up to be in a good shape for that Leopold when the time comes. And you know, the hand size for Amaz could potentially work against him there, because if he's got 8 or 9 cards in hand and 4 units on the table, anything past 9 cards in hand is just going to get discarded. So it could potentially be a mass removal as well here from Thea.
It's a kind of a consequence of having so many cards in hand constantly throughout the game. Value. It certainly is like a concept that can win a game. However, in cards here, you're not really drawing any dead cards. If you draw a dead card, that's because of the situation, not because of the any rule of the game or anything. So when you finally have this many cards in hand and suddenly Leopold hits and bounces everything back, sometimes there's just not room for everyone to go somewhere, so they get lost.
Oh, that's a great pickup there for Thea. It draws another card, and it's the Nashib. It won't come into play really. Oh, it could come into play this turn. No, not really, not really. She won't be able to push for the front line, but good to establish it now.
Nashib's one of those cards that I feel like was so very powerful prior to this like slight balance adjustment that was made, where now it's the first unit that you take out in combat is going to give you 2 credits instead of just each unit that you take out in combat going to be giving you 2 credits. And I just feel like that card has been significantly reduced to sit down by quite a bit. Still a very powerful card at times, but in the later stages, not quite what it used to be.
I think, combined with the kind of first Gebirgsjäger 1/1 that gives you an extra credit at the start of the turn. Yes, I know I went really sideways on the pronunciation there, Spoons. I saw your face on the webcam, just...
Actually, I think it's the Gebirgs Pioneers, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, the Gebirgs Pioneers. That's true.
Gebirgs Pioniere?
Exactly what Spoons said. But I mean, combined with that, it does give you an extra 3 credits a turn whenever you do trade, and I feel like that's still significant, especially in an Alpine deck where that could mean 2 more Alpine units out.
Yeah, and it's also triggering on orders now. Not to forget about this. The old version did not return credits when you kill an opponent's unit with orders. The new version does. So,
Your story.
It's more like a change, but yeah, I agree. It's way weaker in special situations, but overall, I think it's still worth to put it in the deck.
All right, I mean,
taking down that smoke screen. And here's the bolster and some damage about to be cranking through. So now, Amaz favors a trade here in this instance. Very interesting, and so we're kind of really respecting the Alpine idea I think that with this trade that's been demonstrated here, Amaz now moves to the front line, and suddenly this Leopold is looking awfully threatening, especially when you combine that with Enigma on the following turn. Holy smokes. Taya gets to bounce the whole board here, take complete control of the situation. Look at Amaz's face as he sees this card. And then Enigma next turn is going to be drawing like 4 or 5 cards.
Yeah, that's the insane thing about Leopold, right? You bounce your opponent's units. He has to start from scratch to build a board. And you additionally get insane amount of draw with Enigma next turn. So yeah, very good comeback here for Tier. And yeah, Mas might have some work before him here to reestablish the board.
This is not an easy, when you look down at this board, it's not easy to set up something that I feel like is going to actively fight against this, super hard here. Like you're getting to put down 4 units max. So how do you want to break down that credit cost? And then you're also staring down a 6-4 artillery.
Yeah. So the 3 credits cards that are on the left most have blitz. What was that? So he could have blitzed with both to the front line. Maybe he thought he messed up, I guess. Maybe he thought the German would have blitz.
Yeah, I mean, now the pressure comes in, right? I mean, let's be real. I mean, this is the point in time where you start questioning, how should I play this game, right? I mean, these are new players, and they are being put into a situation where they're playing with extremely complex and deep decks right off the bat. And that Panzer 35T off the top is also a great pickup in terms of blocking the front line for Thea.
Yeah, I'm killing units here as well. Like, you need to claw back in value by quite a bit, I think. You want to move this to the front line, and then the question is, do you want to copy this? Or do you want to draw some cards?
Yes,
and I think that running circles around Amaz right now probably sounds like a better idea. We're getting a 6-5 out of this, and it also has blitz. It's able to take out this Sherman, or it's able to go face. Like, this is an insane swingy spot that Taya's found herself in, and just, my gosh, this is just an incredible stabilization throughout this game. Still 18 on the headquarters, despite being so far behind what I feel like this entire part of the game up to the last 2 turns.
I mean, and the problem here for Amaz is that he lacks the support line access to take out that Leopold, and he just pulled Stars and Stripes, which would have been great if there were 4 units in the back line, but at the moment, it's only dealing 2 damage to those units, so not really finding a ton of value there, but being able to replenish his hand with the Sherman combo, putting a First Marines into the front line, and what that does for our new reviewers is that it makes the HQ get smokescreen, so it can't be attacked directly this turn. So however, Thea now needs to get rid of that tank because it can blitz across the battlefield next turn and take out that Leopold if she isn't careful.
I think there's a lot of different ways to do this as well. I am really eyeing this Enigma at the moment. This is draw 4 cards, and like, you can either spend some credits on things that you feel like you definitely are going to be playing to draw an extra card here, or you can just have 8 credits for the 4 new cards you just drew. And I think that 8 credits for 4 new cards sounds pretty appealing to me. I don't feel like I need a 5th card from this Enigma in order for it to be very powerful in a spot like this.
No, and I mean, I think what I'm thinking is, like, what's interesting here is with this, Amaz is going to be able to take out the Leopold, unless Thea finds a way and trades out those First Marines. If she trades out the First Marines, it's going to be difficult. Wow, what a great play there by Thea, noticing that she needed to trade that out, because Amaz would have bolstered them and traded them into the Leopold, removing the dominance there for Thea on the board.
Yeah, access to the Leopold is certainly waning at this point. Spoos, how do you see Amaz even getting back into this one? I mean, is it pretty much just hoping your opponent overextends the backline?
Yeah, I think that's the only point where he comes back here. If Thea would, not sure why, but stack 4 units in the support line, and then that Stars and Stripes dealing 4 damage to all. But Amaz not having, I'm not sure if he's running Hellcat, a tank that has Blitz with 4 attack. His deck, but otherwise I don't see how he is with that Leopold.
Well, I mean, at this point, Thea should knock out the engineers there with Through the Breach, and then, of course, play that Enigma, drawing 3. See what she gets here. I really like what...
Wow, a bunch of cheap Alpine units.
She can play all of them and move to
Yeah.
the front line and attack with Leopold.
You know, using the stars and stripes of the previous turn actually, I think was a reasonable play from Amaz's side, because you see that the backline's kind of going to get weighted down. And your opponent's going to be doing stuff and just kind of out of cards in general. But suddenly you're going to look down and you're going to wonder, oh gosh, should I have used this?
Yeah.
Also, look at this. She drew 3 1-cost units the turn after Amaz drops 2 Flampanzers without using the deployment effect, right? Like that would have been
poorly here.
that would have been 2 free removals, right? So a lot of value lost there by Amaz, but you know we'll see if he gets it back here. I mean, he has the first Marines, so he should be able to basically blitz on into the front line there, and then take that Flampanzer and remove the Leopold from the back line.
Patton allows this to be taken care of. So Patton does allow this Leopold finally to be taken care of. It gives your units blitz as you recruit them this turn. So you're able to play like this first Marines, for instance, and take out this 5-2, and then you're able to have this Flampanzer actually get to the back line and wipe out this Leopold. So this is a super helpful situation.
He didn't even
Amaz
need
here.
to. He didn't even need to use Patton. You know, the tank would have been able to move and operate.
Blitz.
Yeah, I mean, the only difference is that the 22nd there gets blitz and is able to put it into the front line to draw 1 extra card, which works out for him. But
Ooh, that Panther G. That Panther G.
Could become big.
Yeah, Panther G with bolster is not a joke. Cannot be targeted by enemy orders. Heavy armor 1. So Tea's got some nice unit structure going on here, as you're kind of matching Amaz card for card at this point. But suddenly this Panther is pretty big. Wow. The Grenadiers get the Fury. Whew. There's a lot. This is it's kind of crazy to think that the players are at 20 and 18 on their headquarters at this stage of the game with how much has been taking place in the game right now.
Yeah. This is an insane game. And wow, look at that Panther G with Fury and bolster. Oh, and no, can't be targeted by orders. Can't be targeted by orders. She can remove the Fury.
True
She can
story.
remove the Fury, but
it's just getting redeployed and
Yeah.
it's back to Fury. Yeah.
oh, that's such a huge pickup. That Fury enabling unit for Amaz might have just secured him the win, because he's going to be able to trade out at least 2 of those Alpine units, and the fewer Alpine units on the board, the less dangerous the other new ones are. Ooh, that was really well played by Thea, recognizing to kill that unit instead of bouncing it back.
Yeah, kind of a tough spot to be in, though. I mean, you're putting, what is this, 3 total damage onto this this Panther G right now. This is not enough to claw back at the moment. But that's not a card that really gets you in the game either at this point. So some pretty mediocre draws at this stage. However, when it's mediocre draw versus mediocre draw, I'm going to favor the player that has the heavy armor 9/8.
Yeah.
Wow,
another
first dude.
not what you want to see off the top of the deck there for Thea.
What an insane first match here.
It's crazy.
Wow. So the coaches did some great work here, honestly.
Yeah, and as a reminder, twitch.tv/Amaz, twitch.tv/TheaBeasty, /AliasV, and /TrumpSC for all the POV streams, if you're interested in those. But now we see Amaz starting to pick up the cards that'll let him take over the game and not take no prisoners. Why did he not operate the tank? He just forgot. He just straight up forgot 9 damage to face.
Well, and it punched a unit.
It punched the unit. You just did on.
Okay.
Yeah. But, knowing that you're able to move that forward as well, definitely a real deal here. But Tea's just had 3 pretty dead draws in a row versus one of the premier combo, I would say, of the deck that Amaz is piloting here.
I think Amaz just waited for the 109s to give that Panther 1 additional attack.
Oh, look at that.
He knew his
insane value foresight. In real talk, though, like kind of looking at the deck overhead and really considering that, it makes sense to hold that back. Incidentally, it does make sense to hold that back as soon as Spoos draws that. Now, I guarantee that's not the foresight that was being had there. But what I can say is that kind of, this bizarre context of the game where neither player is really drawing anything relevant towards the end, and you have this 9/5 sitting in play on your back line that has 0 operation cost into tank. Yeah, leave it there for a turn.
Yeah.
Pretty cool first game.
No, I mean, I thought it was a great first game, way better than I, even expected. I think this shows you why we pick these people as well, right? I mean, they know their stuff, even though they're new to cards. They know their stuff, and they understand these concepts, and they're able to take the coaching that's being given to them. And tough luck there for Thea. I mean, she almost had it with that Leopold, but exceptional play from Amaz, and just him having that big hand size and being able to stuff out a bunch of units that the Leopold just couldn't deal with. The pure mass of, ended up securing that victory. I think we're just gonna. I kind of want to watch the second game in this series instead of jumping over to another game right now. Do you guys agree?
Yeah, I mean, we got 6 matches that are coming into play today. You know, there's 6 rounds that are coming into play today as players are playing these best of 3s and kind of just in a round robin fashion to see what goes on here. So I'm down to keep watching this one right now. I mean, this was a pretty killer first game. You know, nothing like too memey or crazy about these ones. Just kind of strong core strategies with some cool little introductory ideas that are attached into them. You know, bolster is not really like I would say like a heavy tournament concept at the moment, but it is still a very powerful effect. And so it's pretty much anytime I get to see this demonstrated and how it's demonstrated, it's always just something I enjoy to see, because this is probably, I think this was the first like concept idea that I tried to make work in cards myself, was figuring out ways to get a unit in play and then bolster it. And I was using the Soviet card that gives +5/+5 and 5 additional operation cost.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I am a genius. And I thought I was just the smartest player in the world when first time I nailed that killer attack. And I just was like, oh, this is the best strategy in the game. Your opponent always has to be worried. And then I queued into an artillery deck that hit me for about 26 on turn 3. So yeah, I'm down to keep watching this one. Spoos, what was the first deck you think you built in this game where you were proud of the strategy that you executed?
I started cards so long ago that I could not even remember. But yeah, let me take a minute before we start into the next match. I'm thinking about it, and I will give you an answer later.
All right, I'll give you a moment to let that dwell and brew up some herbal water there, some tea,
some herbal water, some hot herbal water,
some carbonated coffee.
Yeah, I mean, Spoos just has so many cards memories in his brain that it just takes like a while to process them all. You know, it's been with us for a long, long time. When did you start playing? Didn't you play like in beta or alpha, Spoos?
Yeah, beta. I played in beta. Yeah.
Wow, look at this opening hand from Thea, as Spoos is dwelling on these memories right now, trying to dig into this catalog and find where these spots are. 2 war machines on the open, and if you're on the Amaz side of things right now, you remember Wild Growth from Hearthstone. War Machine, very much reminiscent of that effect. However, in cards, there is no cap on the amount of credits you can have. The game naturally caps you at 12. However, once you're at that 12 spot, you can accelerate and hit into 13 credits and 14 credits. I've been up to 21 credits before, and let me tell you, I have spent all 21 credits in one turn and still lost that game. I don't remember how, but I did. And the point is, it's awesome. Ramp in this game is very powerful. Almost every single card I have found in this game is extremely powerful and potent, and that's one of the reasons that I love cards so much, is that nothing is really broken as a centerpiece. Everything just feels very, very strong, and you kind of just have to respect what your opponent's doing no matter what. There are draws that can wipe you out of the game, but they're pretty rare.
Yeah, and I like seeing Tia here swap over to another deck, now playing Britain, focused more on the control with that ramp. And I just wanna highlight that cup of coffee. I just love how that cup of coffee looks. I love how the coffee swirls in it when a big card
was the
gets
coffee
slammed
your
down.
idea?
It was. It totally was. I mean, pretty much all the cosmetics, most of the cosmetics have been my idea. So I love them a lot. We're also working on a cup of tea that I think is going to be a smashing hit, especially with Amaz's coach, Bubbles.
Comes a
I
shelling.
wanted to mention that Bubbles complained that it's not a cup of tea, and I think he's really looking forward to that one.
Shelling, wiping out a credit line from Amaz's side, and also pinning this entire board down. It's not going to be able to attack for an entire turn. Amaz still at 3 credits. Tea's going to be moving into 6 credits next turn, and I'm looking at that 7-cost card, the carpet bombing, that's in Tea's hand right now. That's 3 damage to the entire enemy unit side once that one hits. And so Tea here has a fantastic setup against what Amaz's deck is trying to do right now, which is establish a heavy board presence and then take advantage of that tempo.
I mean, right now, Bubbles' role as Amaz's coach is to basically inform him that there is an order in this game that will wipe his board and that he should not overextend before that happens.
Whoa. I will fully disagree with the overextent. I completely ignore my opponent's cards, and I do as much as I can. I make them have it, not me.
I mean, it's a fair strategy. It's a fair strategy. But I mean, Carpet Bomb is definitely one of those cards that, completely surprised newer players when they first encounter it.
Oh, yeah.
And it's funny because it's one of the early rewards that you get in the national progression as well. So it is a fairly common card to see in the lower levels. But if you start Japan and not Britain, you'll never have seen it. You'll have flooded the board, and then all of a sudden this guy just like just like wipes everything, and you're just left staring into the abyss, thinking, how did it all go wrong?
Spoos, I gotta ask you: are you a make them have it kind of player, or are you a reserve my resources kind of player?
I'm more like a miss player, I would say.
Oh my God! Look at that. Thea just drew. She just drew a big card. Rule Britannia. That gives all their British units +2 health, and then sets their attack value to be the same as their health. And with those 2 C4 Highlanders established, that is a massive.
Oh yeah. One of the primary, I'd say, Britain elites that are in this game. When you're playing elites in this game, you have to be playing that as your main nation. So whatever your allied nation is, you can't be using their elites as well in this one. It's one of the coolest things I've enjoyed about this game is having to decide which nation I want as my main nation when the card synergies are working together, just because I don't know what elites I should be using. And Rule Britannia has always caught my interest. I love having a couple of units in play, and I love being able to take advantage of board buffs because I have a couple of units. Rule Britannia, it's a heavy cost, but it takes advantage of any time that you have units in play. It's fantastic.
Yeah, especially combined with the ramp. Combined with the ramp, it's such a nice strategy to bring out the guards, protect your HQ, ramp. So increase your credit slots each turn, and then play the Rule Britannia. And look what might happen here.
Oh boy,
it's going to be 9 damage to face if she wants to play the Rule Britannia.
I think
you could also like just move additional front line if you wanted to. I'm kind of curious if the Rule Britannia should be played here, though. You still do have a Sexton in hand. You can pin down a unit for 2 turns effectively with that. You get a 3/4 artillery and a much bigger threat with that Rule Britannia as well, as that will turn into a 6/6 artillery unit, and that is a terrifying thought. Like if you step forward here with the C4th Highlander and simply play Ultra in that spot, you've now protected yourself from one of your opponent's counterplays in one of their orders being able to do something pretty scary. And at the same time, you've developed another unit for this. So I think that this is, more of a macro play here on Tea's side, just trying to think, which one of these should I be trying to take advantage of most? And I think it's the next turn.
There's one thing. I don't know if you knew this, Admirable, but back in the day, we did allow elites from both nations. So during during the first World Championship, this was a thing. So you would have decks that would have like To the Last Man and Commonwealth and a bunch of Carpet Bombs and a bunch of Kamikazes, and the control decks were very much just like geared
a little
towards,
too
good. Yeah, a little bit too good. So we quickly went, this is madness. Let's cut down the elites from the ally nation.
Wait a second, you can't have General Patton and Monty on the same team. These are 2 different nations. They can work together, but they can't command the same line.
Exactly.
So for Tea here, I mean, the Rule Britannia is now also being contested by the B-17. I'm staring at these 2 ones in play, and I'm thinking to myself, this B-17 might not be it. What do you think, Spoos?
It's a tough line here. I mean, with the B-17, you're not only killing an opponent's units in the support line, you also have a 5/5 bomber with heavy armor on the board that your opponent is probably not having good answers for. The only answer you might have is something that retreats it, but then, you just get the deployment effect again off. But I think I would go for the Rule Britannia here. A 9/9 at the front line should be hard for Amaz to deal with only having 7 attack at the moment in the front line, in the support line.
Yeah, you're striking the headquarters here, I imagine, as well, right? I mean, 9 feels a lot better than taking out a 3/3. Yeah.
Go for it. And
it's hard to turn
for next turn. I think this might be game already. No, he's having the bolster, can make a 5/5 out of that Flampanzer, which is together with the 2 chocolate boys, exactly 9 damage.
Yeah, and then you're fighting next turn against 6 to face or take out a primary unit, and then also a B-17 as well. So Amaz is having to invest their entire turn to simply stave off lethal damage, and then look at your plays afterwards. You get to add a 2/1.
Yeah. That 2-1. You don't mess with that 2-1.
And so here we go. This is a 50-50 of the B-17 if it wants to try and wipe out a tank here, which would be a huge deal. And then 6 damage to face from Tea's side. So you have 2 units threatening lethal. They're massive units, and you're eliminating some of the board presence on Amaz's side.
I think you just Wrath Lightning.
Oh.
Throw back the Chocolate Boys, hit face. You know that tank is not going to do anything. Now nothing can operate next turn for Amaz, and she's threatening lethal.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I think that was the argument to play the Rough Lightning over B17, that you have the additional.
I was ignoring the double pin down from Sexton there.
Yeah,
apologies. Yeah, that was just lethal.
The surrender comes in.
Heck yeah.
1-1. What an amazing series we're getting here. I'm impressed.
It's just kind of cool decks and just everything kind of like showing like the primary nation aspect of it, where it's like, Britain is very much trying to find this synergistic concept. The USA is kind of just constantly delivering unit pressure over and over and over and over again. It just doesn't stop producing. And as we saw in the first matchup there with the the bolster effects, just like how big the unit combos can be in this game. It's this game is very much, I feel like it's like a platform of like put a thing in play, and then how do you take advantage of it? It's your opponent's responsibility to handle it in a spot like that. And it's just the thing I've enjoyed the most about this game.
No, I mean, I definitely think you are correct there. And, a lot of the game, because of the frontline mechanic, a lot of the game revolves around stuff like, I know that you have a limited amount of blitz units, which means that if I put 2 units in the front line, I limit your options in the following turn, even if you have like a couple of units established, so it is a lot of, thought process that goes into kind of predicting what your opponent wants to do and what they might do. And that's what I enjoy as well. I mean, I've talked about it since I first joined the team here at 1939, that the frontline mechanic and operating costs just make the game so interesting to me. Like it makes it gives me added depth and added things to play around and play with, and manipulate for my opponent as well, right? You can manipulate operation costs, you can manipulate cost of cards, you can manipulate their credits. So it truly is all out warfare when it comes to cards.
Ooze, you've been dwelling over there on that first deck that you were truly surprised and happy with. Is anything coming up for you? You can also just pick your favorite one too. I'm just kind of curious to hear.
I'm not remembering my first deck, but I think I remember the latest situation where I've been proud of when I tried to make it KV1, the tank that deals 2 damage when your opponent draws a card, and that combined with Italy Ally with Pact of Steel that forces both players to draw 4 cards. And I had a situation where I got a KV1 from Heroes of Soviet Union, deployed it, expected my opponent to remove it, but suddenly it survived. So I could deploy a second one the turn after and just did 20 damage to my opponent. Brilliant feeling, I could say.
Gosh, I always loved the forced card draw as a penalty. Yeah. It's always been one of my favorite just things about card games in general, is how can I force my opponent to draw cards and then them get punished by it? Because the only thing I ever want to do when I play a card game is draw more cards. Like, so many times I have looked down at the board and been like, well, I can defeat my opponent, or I can draw 6 cards. So I'm going to draw 6 cards here real quick, because that's kind of like defeating your opponent sometimes. But the forced card draw, that's a chef's kiss.
Yeah, there's some entertaining things you can do with that in cards for sure.
All right, Amaz, swap it up. It looks like we have an Alpine mirror that's taking place here, and look at that first 1-drop that Amaz has been playing here. That's one of the new ones from the Uprising mini set that was released recently. It's a 1 credit 1/1 that at the start of your turn adds an additional credit to your turn. So both players are playing this on turn 1, and what a draw for Amaz. That Panzer is going to be able to wipe out that back line.
That was huge. No, don't do that. What?
Okay.
He's using. Okay.
Using it through the breach.
Okay.
Yeah. So favoring the tempo here again. This is kind of like the fundamental aspect from players is that they favor tempo a lot, and I don't blame Amaz for this at all. Honestly, kind of when I look down at this in terms of just strategic play, this is probably a bit stronger.
Yeah, I mean, the whole key there was that he needed to get rid of that Alpine unit in the backline, because establishing that second Alpini regiment on a dry board means you won't draw a card and you won't make it a 3-3. So with this, Amaz just took a massive lead, and now he gets to put out the 141 Gebirgsjäger, and he gets it +3/+3. That'll make it a 6-5 that can't be targeted by enemy orders, and that's absolutely insane.
The smile on Spooz's face anytime that we pronounce a German card, Ali, is just always going to bring a joy to me. I'm hoping that we can get that on camera at some point just to show what it looks like, because it is fantastic. It is one of just the most genuine smiles I've ever seen, and Spooz never stop. Wow, look at that draw, bro. There's a huge draw. Oh my gosh. Oh, your Alpine unit's gonna be so +1, and you draw an Alpine unit. Oh my gosh.
Wow, Amaz just finding all the right cards in all the right places.
That is pure gasoline. Holy smokes.
Ooh.
I think that was the game winner. I think that was a closer right there.
That 35k on turn 2, or that through the breach, killing the Gebirgs Pioneers from tier. I think that play gave Amaz such a big advantage here.
My gosh, and he draws Pursuit to follow this up. You eliminate the guard off the board, and you just absolutely demolish your opponent from here. This is the power of going first in cards, I will say. This is the one thing I'm hoping gets addressed, I will say, Ali. Take this with a grain of salt, of course, but going second needs something to fight back for tempo here. That extra card is not doing it.
Yeah, I mean, so this has been a discussion for a long time, around the kind of different starting scenarios and so on. But what we do is we keep a very, very close look at, how does the win rate look on either side, if you go first, if you go second. And those numbers have been fairly consistent and fairly good. But you bring up a valid point there, Admirable, right? Now we're getting more players into the game. We're getting high-level players like, Amaz and Tia. And these are people that know how to play around tempo a lot. So how do we fine-tune the game and fine-tune it as our player base evolves? That is our responsibility, and we will definitely never sleep on that, for sure.
Love to hear it. So from Amaz's side, can they continue to capitalize on this tempo right now, or is value going to come into a concern? I am looking at that 22nd Infantry Regiment being drawn, and again, tempo here going to be the #1 key. Develop first. Board is part of your value.
I would have played in a different order, though. I would have played the 8-7 before the 6-5, just to get a bigger untargetable unit. But
I see. I was like, well, you kind of get the same numbers here. Untargetable. Right. Yeah, for Tea's side though, it's just literally throw stuff down and hope you can defend. So the Panzer being able to wipe out the extra credit line here, but Amaz I think has taken full advantage of that. Able to get a couple points of damage out of it, able to get a ton of tempo at this point, and through the breach getting drawn to wipe through this 3-5 as well. You get to spend your entire credit line here. You get to keep your board, and you get an engine in play.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest concern there was the hand size for Amaz, but it looks like he's going to be able to replenish some of it at least. And now he gets the Jags Bomber. That is a huge, huge draw off the top for him. Being able to
are lightning from Amaz's side.
Spoos GG, right?
Could you have picked a better draw in a row?
The draws from Amaz in this game, holy moly! And yeah, I think these draws gave him the win now.
You can suppress lethal for a turn from Tea's side, but I don't think you can prevent lethal. I think it is kind of inevitable at this point, given the build of the decks. They don't really have board sweep going on. But from Tea's side, you could, in theory, just push back lethal this turn by using the retreat onto the 8-7. You use through the breach on like a 3-1. And then you play something and hope that it's good enough. But I think that trying to establish something here and get it moving that way is the best way to actually claw back into the game, and that's where the FW190 is really going to demonstrate its prowess at this point as well. It just puts a unit back in your hand.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say, I think Amaz pretty much wow, and he's drawn almost perfect this entire game. I mean, he didn't even get bogged down with a bunch of Alpini regiments. The 2-2s having to draw him other